Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Bonsoir, mes amis. A huge Habs win tonight after a 7-game road trip where they were very, very successful, going 4-1-2. I expected, full disclosure, a bit of a letdown game today because you look at the St. Louis game last weekend. First game of a back-to-back, a team that you're not necessarily expected to get up for it against, with a tougher team coming the next game. I thought they might take this one off. And you also have like the long road trip, first game home situation. But no, the Canadiens were super sharp out of the gate. And I apologize to Anand and Conrad here with me today from Calgary, Game Over Calgary, two phenomenal young sports broadcasters, journalists in the Calgary sports space that you should definitely be following on all platforms. Unfortunately, you guys got the Canadiens fastball today, and it was not kind to the Flames.
Well, the Calgary Flames can't make contact with the off-speed, so when the fastball comes, we're just completely outclassed. And you say the fastball, and boy, the Montreal Canadiens speed really showed how slow and lumbering our top six defensemen are, if we're including Hunter Brustevich conversation.
Yeah,
It was a tough one.
Yes, it was a bit frustrating one to watch for sure, especially starting this 2026, a bit of uninspiring hockey to watch compared to what we saw last December, how they brought themselves back to almost 500 hockey and now dropped again.
But I'll build off what Anand says here. I think everybody who has been watching the Flames for longer than that sample size outside of the last couple weeks of December knew that was not what the Calgary Flames are. I think the Calgary Flames are closer to how we started the season than how we ended 2025. Like, as much as the people who are more into the advanced stats will argue, oh, a lot of that was the Flames had the top 3 toughest schedule in the league to open the season. We just don't have the skill to be in the current style of hockey that the NHL employs. If we took the time capsule back 10 years, this team probably competes with a lot of teams in this league. But everyone's getting so fast and so skilled, and the Flames have Nazem Kadri.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough sled and a lot to ask out of a team that hasn't had a chance to bottom out or compete at a high level for quite a long time. It's hard to get better when you're stuck in the middle for so long, which is the situation that the Flames are still in somehow. We've got a great show for you tonight. We had a very exciting game, at least from the Canadiens' perspective. Maybe not as exciting from the Flames, but I think anybody watching that could at least appreciate some of the passing. You know, the Canadiens were throwing the puck around pretty nicely tonight. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the state of the Flames in, I guess you would call them in a rebuild, but not quite admitting it yet. They're still saying retool. And compared to the Canadiens, we're going to look back in history a little bit and look at where these teams were a couple of years ago compared to now. And then we're going to finish off in the third period talking a bit of special teams and how much of a difference that was tonight, because actually some interesting numbers on that front as well that I checked into quickly before the show. So we're going to go into the first period in a second here, but first we have to tell you about who is sponsoring the first period, which is our friends at Inchu Bijou. So we'll hear from them now.
At the famous chateau at 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise lies one of Montreal's coolest secrets, a glamorous Gothic jewelry store owned and run by women. Inchu Bijou isn't just a business. They've built a community that supports bold creativity and expression. When I was first introduced to founder Astrida Pisigomian's shop, I was floored by the detail, vision, and scale of what she's built from her own mind. I don't think anyone would call me goth, but I know an innovator when I see one. Along with building their own business, Inchu Bijou also hosts markets for vendors in their space called Marché Maleficarum, boosting their whole community. If you don't live in Montreal, explore inchubijou.com, where you'll find over 800 designs that range from affordable to bespoke. Check out Inchu Bijou right now, a Game Over partner from the beginning.
Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I'm Andrew Berkshire. I'm here with Conrad Krausert and Anand Unnithan, and we're going to have a great show for you tonight. I guess Game Over Calgary as well. It's a crossover tonight, so we'll talk about the Flames. I guarantee it. It might not be the most fun talk because I think Conrad wants to let some wake-up calls reverberate out into Calgary after this one in the last several games. We're going to get to that in the second segment, but let's break down the game a little bit. From the Montreal perspective, the biggest thing that I saw tonight, and part of it could be that the Flames, as you mentioned, were a bit slow and lumbering, especially on the back end, but the Canadiens had their sticks on pucks all night long. There just was not an easy puck for the Flames to get in this game. And when you're already a little bit on the back foot and a team is on you like that, it must be so grating. And in the first period, I thought Wolf especially was spectacular. And I wondered if it was going to be one of those nights where the Canadiens play well, but just don't get things to go their way, especially after the first penalty call, with Bolduc making the dumb hit after the puck or after the whistle, and engaging a scrum that didn't need to exist and getting a penalty out of it. But they were just relentless. They would not let off the gas pedal, and it was just too much.
Yeah, and that's kind of the MO to get the Flames out of these games, because as much as the Flames ownership and management will argue that this is a big, tough, hard to play against team, it seems as soon as something goes wrong, the wheels fall off this Flames team. Everyone in this city, like, you see all the interviews, especially with Mackenzie Weegar, they point to this Flames having a strong locker room. But everything I see points so starkly to the contrary in that. It's awful. And Montreal, as you said, if not for Dustin Wolf, this game probably ends closer to an 8-0 score, or 8-1 scoreline if we're going to give the Flames credit for their one, potentially two, if Nazem Kadri learns how to drag a skate along the blue line. The Flames were in this from the opening get-go. And me and Anand have talked about this so many times, where Dustin Wolf bails out a lot of the Flames' bad play a lot of the time. But this is his 7th game starting in a row. And there was a lot of rumors, actually, that he was going to get the previous game off here in Calgary, if not for an illness that Dustin Cooley had, or Logan Cooley. I always get the Cooleys mixed up. There's too many of them. By that, I mean 2 of them in this league.
Devin Cooley.
Yeah. It is
There's also Caden Gooley.
Yeah.
Just to throw another confusing one in there.
Yeah, but I was listening to some of the sports radio in around Calgary today, and like, there are some people hitting up the text line that I listen to all the time, saying Dustin Wolf needs to have a spell off, because when we did have that span through November where the Flames started to come back after their weak October, it was Dustin Wolf getting spelled off on a regular basis. But him playing 7 in a row, just like he started the year, has struggled. But as you said, I don't think Dustin Wolf is to blame for this game in the slightest.
Yeah. I feel like you look at I know by natural stat trick, the expected goals were like, I think the Canadiens put up like 4.1 something, which doesn't sound that much. But I feel like the pre-shot movement tonight was really crazy, and Wolf made a lot of amazing saves. I feel like the expected goals undercount what he dealt with tonight in terms of traffic in front, like fighting through seeing his own defenders sometimes. And just the amount of mobility he had to display throughout the game to get in front of shots, it was really impressive. Is he like this good all the time, or does he just really do well against the Canadiens, Anand?
I haven't seen much of him against the Canadiens. I know we lost that one in overtime a few, or at least a month ago, or maybe a couple months ago now. He's consistently good to begin with, like especially when you have the early stages of the game. And then, like Conrad now just said, when he starts like 7 in a row, then he sometimes starts to show fatigue off, and sometimes one gets past him. I know today itself, he could have maybe had that one back. I think it was the second goal that the Canadians scored, right where the man was left alone. I think it was, or maybe even Lane Hudson, or even Lane Hudson's goal. Maybe if he didn't have that screen in front, or maybe that one man who took it to the corner in that in front of the net, maybe he wanted to have that one back. But again, he's stellar on most nights. But again, the defense should help him out, and maybe the coaching staff should think they should go back to Cooley, who just ended extension, and we haven't seen him for like the past 7 games now. So
I don't know. Maybe he didn't get the flu shot like the rest of us, even though, as we've found out, we guessed the wrong strains on the flu shot this year, so it wouldn't have really helped. Yeah, like I would argue, like we're talking about that Hudson goal because I guess that's where we're at right now. You had 5 Flames players, all 5 of them below the hash marks, and none of them can get up onto that late Hudson shot. Like, for a coach that came into the NHL as a defensive-minded coach, there are 0 systems involved in the Calgary.
Yeah, there was another moment in the third period too where the Flames or the Canadiens had just kind of had a forechecking shift, but they lost the puck. The Flames recovered the puck, and there was 2 defenders in front, but Demidov and Slavkovsky were all over them. And they just kept on getting on the puck and preventing them from moving it, but all 3 Flames forwards had already blown the zone. And it was only after the puck kind of got like pushed back up to the blue line very slowly that another Flames forward turned around and was like, oh, I need to go back and go back into the zone and recovered, and then they exited the zone. But like, that's not the kind of awareness you want to see from your forwards either.
And this isn't a young group. Like, we talk about how the Flames are in the middle of the rebuild. But like, if you look at, obviously, Jonathan Huberdeau, he's in his mid-30s. Mackenzie Weegar just turned 32 today. Like, we are not a young team. Do we have young players like Connor Zary? Obviously, Hunter Brustevich getting back in the lineup today. As we said, William Stromgren entering the lineup. But like, even a bunch of the other pieces like Morgan Frost, who downgraded to the 4th line today for ChatGPT reasons. Joel Farabee, like, these are guys that are in their mid-20s. We are not the Chicago Blackhawks. We are not the San Jose Sharks. We aren't that young. So these mental mistakes, and whether they're just the players on the ice not recognizing plays, whether it's a lack of coaching, because as we know, being in the Western Conference, we have larger travel times, which therefore leads to less practice days. These are all things that can be used as rationale and reasoning. But at the end of the day, these guys are all NHL players. You are the 1% of the 1%. It shouldn't be the scramble drill all the time that it is for this team.
Especially not when you're trying to compete.
Yeah, and this is going to sound like a broken record to anybody who watches Game Over Calgary, but it seems so short-sighted from the management and the ownership group because for those of you who are in Montreal and don't consume a lot of Western media, good job. Ignore us as much as you can in this province. But Don Maloney, in the middle of November, who is the director of hockey operations for the Calgary Flames, said, we like our core group of guys. We like the room that we've built. And this was about the time where there was the big rumors about Nazem Kadri potentially being traded to Montreal.
Right.
And his big line was, we need more Nazem Kadris, not less. And then, of course, the Flames then battle back. By December 31st, they battled their way back to 500. And then they've laid 3 straight goose eggs. This team is directionless, and the ownership group is not giving us direction. The fact that I am jealous of the Aquilinis and the leadership that they provide to the Vancouver Canucks should say enough for our Montreal fans to have pity on the Calgary Flames.
That is a contextualization if ever there was one, because I don't think it's very easy to be jealous of the Aquilinis as an ownership group.
But that's where we are. Murray Edwards ruling from his castle in Switzerland and being happy with his core is something that we've knocked on the door and like we tried to raise awareness. And it's not just us, like even like the mainstream media who are bowing down to every ownership group in this country are starting to feel the same way. So, but it's these voices that are not being heard. So,
yeah, it's unfortunate, and I feel like so much of like the Flames over the last however many years has been almost like stubbornness. They're like, they don't want to even think that they're not right. So like, we need to go forward. Even when they were talking, like when Brian Burke was there and they were doing the like threatening over like arena relocation or like the team relocation, right? Everybody knows they're not going to leave Calgary because you cannot guarantee having a team anywhere in the United States, however much funding there is for an arena at the beginning, of having a team in the United States where you can miss the playoffs and bank a profitable team. But they can do that in Calgary. Like, and they've been doing that with a mid team for decades. You don't give up on that.
The
for a
last time we
building.
were competitive, we won the Stanley Cup in your barn. The last time we had a truly competitive Calgary Flames team was the year 1990.
It's a long time. It's a long time.
It's before I was born.
And not good enough. It's not good enough for the fans of the Calgary Flames and for the people of Calgary and for the people who work in that organization. It's not good enough. But yeah, it was a really rough one tonight for the Calgary Flames. A really great one for the Montreal Canadiens. There was a comment that I wanted to touch on quickly because I feel like I've seen, I think it was King of the North on another site as well, mentioned this. He said, Andrew, do you agree that the look at his big ass go moment of the game was Slav mugging that guy for the puck when it was in the air on the power play? And I feel like we should probably make that a thing. Slavkovsky had a moment like that against Carolina that we pointed out a bunch, where he just went end to end around everybody or through everybody and ripped a goal in. And I think that ended up being the game winner. But yeah, he does this now. He's a totally different player, and it's not sudden. It's been a gradual progression, but he's arrived, and it's crazy to see how much he can do with the combination of speed, skill, and just the size of the damn guy. But I thought that was a funny moment because clearly he interfered. I don't remember what Flame it was. He interfered with the guy, but he saw his moment that he could get away with it going for the puck, and he knew he wasn't going to get it, and he was like, I'll just tackle him.
Yeah, and that's what the Calgary Flames want in a guy like Adam Klapka. He got elevated to the top line for 40 minutes before the lines went into a blunder. Anand, we were used to this. The fact that we don't have lines for 40 minutes. But yeah, we want that in our 6'6" friend here in Calgary, but we don't get it. And I know that we had the conversation in the Discord about the third goal for the Habs, about whether or not Nazem Kadri's reputation earned himself out of a penalty call.
Let's go over it, though.
Yeah, but that's been Calgary since the Dennis Weidman incident. Like, we do not get calls in this city, and I still think we're being punished for us, a single player who was concussed, hitting a line. And I don't think that's necessarily a controversial statement. Maybe now that he's no longer on the team, you have to kind of give the officials a little bit more grace. But it seemed that ever since that incident, Calgary has gone from one of the teams that was infamously known as drawing more penalties than they took to a team that is not getting those calls.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anand.
Yeah, in this Calgary side, we have seen like calls that were originally maybe called on the ice, like 5-minute penalties downgraded to a 2, even though some of the calls were brutal. So yeah, I agree with Conrad. Like some of the calls maybe have definitely been missed, especially we were talking about the Kadri. Maybe was he tripped on that goal? Maybe not. You could argue it both ways. Maybe he blew a tire. But yeah, some of the calls that we wanted to get or we should be getting, we haven't gotten. And I don't know if it's going back to that effect Conrad talked about, the Bilderman effect, or if it's just something the league misses, the referees misses. I know hockey is a fast-paced sport, but definitely some of the calls get missed.
Yeah, it was a tough one because I feel like the contact that Kapanen made on Kadri was not a lot, but Kadri was so on the edge of his skate that he did tumble. And because of the leverage of the situation, it's such a high leverage situation right in front of the net. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get called there. But then watching when Kadri starts falling, and even before he's on the ice, he's like, ugh! Like looking back at the ref with his hands out instead of being engaged in the play whatsoever. And along with his history of, let's face it, he draws penalties for multitudes of reasons. I understand why the refs let it go. But like what I said in the Game Over Discord was, if that were my team, I would be raging, like completely justified to be upset with it. But at the same time, I'm like, it is Kadri, so I get it, but it probably should have been called.
And like, Toronto Nazem Kadri gets that call, and Colorado Nazem Kadri gets that call. So it just is, it's a little frustrating. And I'm seeing lots of people saying that the Flames can't complain because we only got 1 penalty called against us this game. But I think it's still valid to talk about officiating in this league every single game. Like
it unfortunately is.
As soon as the mask came off with the whole Tim Peel incident, like, it's known that even up calls exist. Like, as we look at the penalties, who was it that took the penalty right after the goal there? Was it the was it the Phil Deneau penalty? That was right after the goal? I think it was. That was totally a makeup call. Like,
yes. Oh, yes.
And like, if that's not an admission of we missed a penalty, I don't know what there is in this league. So
yeah, you see it all the time. And like the Tim Peel one was obvious. And ironically, I had Tim Peel on Game Over Montreal the first year we did with SDPN. And the night that we had it on, I wrote about this recently because I'm doing a project right now where I'm looking through minor penalties for as many teams as I possibly can. Right now, I'm almost through the Atlantic Division. I'm going through game by game and tracking penalties by like what period they're in, what the score is when it happens, who's drawing them, what kind of penalty it is, what time of the period, to like actually build a penalty database that can be moved through and you can figure out what's going on. And I was asked to do it by a Canadiens fan. And I started out just tracking the Canadiens and I found some interesting results. So I'm now tracking more teams to figure out if those results can expand. So maybe I'll find something interesting with Calgary. And I don't think it's controversial at all to acknowledge what happened after the Dennis Weidman incident. It was remarkably obvious when it occurred that the Flames had it in for Calgary for a while. And when we had Tim Peel on that show, after the show when we were just talking over Zoom, it was myself, Tim, and Wabgisha Grace was there with us as well. And it was the night that Nathan McKinnon slashed a ref off the face-off, or slashed a linesman off the face-off. And after that game, Tim Peel was talking to us and he said, just watch. They'll get them back. They'll get Colorado in the playoffs. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, they will get Colorado back in the playoffs. That will be remembered. And I was like, okay. Because at the time, I remember there was no punishment for McKinnon. They like went against the rule book for abuse of official and didn't give him anything. Now, Colorado was the second highest drawing penalty team in the league that year. And they had, I think, the third best penalty differential. Fast forward to the playoffs, they're like 14th of 16th teams in drawing penalties. And like they still went to the conference final. They were a wagon that year. But they were undone.
A guy named Cale Makar debuted that playoffs, if I remember correctly. Calgary.
Yep. So it is relevant, even if like the Flames got the better end of the stick tonight from the officiating perspective, considering they had the puck about 20% of the time. But that doesn't mean that there's not hurt feelings and long-term observations that are very valid. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to switch gears and we'll start talking about the rebuild in the second period here. And before we do, we'll hear from our sponsor for Le Saint Motel. But I'm going to start off with Anand in the second period. And I just want to get your feelings on like what the Flames plan actually is right now. Like, what do you guys think they think it is? Not what you think it is. What do you think they actually believe that they can accomplish? On the other side of a nice little ad for Le Saint Motel.
While you're browsing Inchu Bijou's goth shop, head next door and discover Montreal's most unique selfie studio. Whether you're looking to take some banger pics of your Halloween costume or cosplay, or you want to make some memories with friends, Le Saint Motel has you covered. Experience their bombastic decors that are always changing, hop in the ball pit, and take advantage of their extensive and flexible on-site lighting. Head to lesaintmotel.com to book your time in the studio, book private time where you and your friends will be the only ones allowed in, or book the space for an event. The dedicated, caring staff will make sure that you have a good time. I do have one warning for you before you book. If you have kids, they won't want to leave. Whether you're at Le Saint Motel or in Bijou, tell them Game Over sent you.
Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I'm here with Anand, Unnithan, Conrad, Krausert from Game Over Calgary. I am Andrew Berkshire here hosting, and we're going to talk about rebuilds, because I'll be honest, my feed tonight on Blue Sky, just because I scroll through it once in a while, was so positive, and I get it's partially due to the way the game went and how the Habs played, but so many people that I know who are generally taking the negative view of things are smitten with this team. And I remember how rough it was just a few short years ago, because I was watching every single game and reacting to it live with a bunch of people. And it was drilled into me how miserable it was, to the point where they even made a compilation of me starting shows with another Montreal Canadiens loss that went on for, I think, 10 minutes when they posted on YouTube. So I've been where the Calgary Flames are. But Anand, what do you think the plan is?
If you ask me, the Flames, I don't know if they have one specific plan just yet. I know they trust their core right now, whatever they have. So, like the Jonathan Huberdeaus, the Nazem Kadris, that's what they trust that can take them to a playoff run. And that's what they hope. They want to make it a playoff run. Maybe Murray Edwards want some of the playoff revenue that he's looking for. And that's where the Flames stand. I don't think even we have seen with the coaching staff just down below, like Ryan Huska on the ice product that he puts, he trusts more veterans than he usually does compared to what we saw Montreal Canadiens do today. I know you guys trusted Cole Caulfield, you guys trusted Texier, you trusted Lane Hudson in the most important minutes, and I don't think we have seen that from the Flames. So I think the Flames overall is, again, stick with whatever you have. Don't fix whatever is not, or even if it's broken, don't fix it, and continue the way. And that somehow they think it will get you miracle results, but at the same time, we haven't seen it at all.
So basically the plan is try to hopefully make the playoffs and hope Dustin Wolf ekes out a few extra games where you can get a few more games worth of revenue, home games, and that's about it. It kind of sounds like what the plan was in Montreal for a while. Band-Aid solutions just to get over the hump, to say you did.
I'd say that's accurate. And I know we touched on this a little bit before we went live, but I've kind of been spending these last, 20 minutes that we've been live, kind of thinking on this. And looking back to the COVID year, where the Calgary Flames and the Montreal Canadiens were very similar situation. If that had been a full season, I don't think the Flames or the Canadiens make the playoff. Let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah, agreed.
And then the Montreal Canadiens, they decide, even though after they go on their miracle run, that things need to change. They make the change in the coaching staff. They completely begin their rebuild, shipping off anything that isn't tied down, and beginning the rebuild. The Calgary Flames countered by not tendering an offer that Johnny Gaudreau thinks is worthwhile. Thus leads to Matthew Tkachuk saying, I'm not going to re-sign with you. And then it goes down with the trade to Florida to try and recoup assets. Johnny Gaudreau deciding he wants to go play in Columbus to be a little bit closer to family, which, if he had been given a contract that he deserved at that point, probably should have been raising his kids in Calgary and area. And hey, maybe moving the whole Gaudreau family up north of the border. Who knows? But it is really the point where these two teams separated. It was Murray Edwards and, of course, the management of that day, the Jay Feaster, head of the hockey department, and some guy that's now leading the general manager in Toronto, and that's gone this year. The Calgary Flames spiraled, and the Habs, yes, you had a couple of really down years in the first few years of Martin St. Louis, former Calgary Flame, by the way, and his leadership. But with going to an offense first coach, believing in the young guys that you drafted highly, and honestly finding some diamond in the rough defenders, because I think Mike Matheson the study needs to be done on him and how important he is for this Montreal Canadiens team. Like, it is this complete polar opposite between how these two organizations have been run, where it's short-term planning with no foresight, understanding, hey, let's get our 2 games of playoff revenue because we don't have to share that with the players. And then Montreal's deciding, no, we want to be contenders for the cup. We want to add to our trophy case that hasn't been added to in quite some time. Like, it's a complete polar opposite, and it's honestly frustrating as a Flames fan, because if we had, actually invested in our 2 superstars instead of letting them walk for free and trading them for cents on the dollar, like, maybe the Flames are in a similar situation. Instead, we are battling with Vancouver and Winnipeg to see who wants to draft first overall. God, it sucks to be a Western Canadian fan unless you cheer for the Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, then you're an Oilers fan, so that's not great either.
We love you, Avery.
Poor Avery, and Graham, and Austin, everyone. But like, it's not a good scene. Let's be real.
Hey,
yeah, I mean,
at least cheer for the powerhouse that is the Northern Alberta Extreme now. So
there you go. You got to have something. The Canadiens, like, their rebuild, I think the unfortunate thing is they were dragged into it kicking and screaming, right? Like, it wasn't like they went to the Stanley Cup final and were like, we could do better. We could build more sustainably. Well, they went into that Stanley Cup final and then went into the summer really positive. And then Bergevin decided that they needed to draft Logan Mailloux, who was not even projected to go that high, even before the controversy situation, like his own actions getting him in trouble. Like, even before that, said he didn't want to be drafted, or at least his agent did, which I still maintain to this day was a ploy to be drafted, but that's my cynical mind, maybe working overtime, but that's just how hockey is, in my opinion. So there was that happened, which put Bergevin from a position where he was about to get extended to now we're not going to talk about contract extension. And he's talking to LA instead because suddenly he's not in a good position. The owner's pissed off because the flack is real. People are mad. And then they start the season, they fall flat on their face. Oh, I should also mention Shea Weber was retired due to injury, and Carey Price was basically going to miss the rest of the season. His career is essentially done. Played a couple more games. So that also contributed, but they really fell flat on their face in that start to the season. Ducharme was overwhelmed, could not get a handle on things. The replacements they brought in, they tried to lowball Phil Deneau, lost him in free agency. Then they lost Jesperi Kotkaniemi at the same time, which long-term probably worked out pretty good for them. But you're losing 2 of your 3 centers. Everything's on Suzuki. He's playing great, but the team is just crap. And then COVID is ripping through them and injuries galore. They're terrible. They're utterly terrible. And it was only once everything fell apart completely that they finally figured it out and realized they needed to gut it and move on. And even initially, it seemed like they weren't going to get rid of Ducharme till the end of the year, but results kept on going the same way and nothing was improving. So they made that change. And I think partially they probably got lucky in terms of timing that Marty St. Louis was ready to take on this challenge, because I think he's been unbelievably important through this rebuild process. But I have to give credit to the management staff. They just don't operate like any NHL team that I've seen. And they always have a mind to the future.
Sorry. But then you compare that to the Calgary Flames, where the only one who has said this team needs to rebuild is Craig Conrad. Every other member of this management team who have done absolutely nothing in their entire NHL resumes. Like, look at who our friend. I'll pull it up here, but like we have management staffs that manned the early 2000s Maple Leafs and the Arizona or Phoenix Coyotes. That is our brain trust right now.
Damn.
And if you want to look at teams that have had success, I wouldn't point to those two organizations. Like, and Craig Conrad is the only person saying, no, listen to me. We need to accrue draft capital. And he has done a hell of a job drafting. And obviously, like, we can look back into the draft, into the crystal ball, and say that it was, rest in peace, Chris Snow and Craig Conroy, who had led this team back into believing that analytics deserved to exist. And then you look at the absolute dinosaurs we have running this organization. Like, it's so frustrating because everybody and their dog can look at the advanced stats for this team. And as you know, stats can be skewed to fit whatever viewpoint you want them. But I think you can recognize that the Flames had an absolutely terrible PDO in the start of the season. Like, one of the unluckiest teams statistically that the NHL has ever seen. But you also don't have anyone that can finish with the eye test. Like, this team is bad in both departments. But yet, we need more leadership. We need to extend Michael Backlund in the offseason for absolutely no reason. But now he looks like a genius. He said the best year of his career should be on Team Sweden. I'll stick my point on that one. But it's just, this ownership group isn't listening to that pressure. Like, they aren't listening to the fans. They aren't listening. I don't think they're listening to the sponsors who say they want to leave.
Damn.
Because Murray Edwards
Just stubborn.
believes he knows better than everyone else. And like, we have to remember, this isn't technically isn't a single ownership like it is in Montreal or the Aquilinis. It is a ownership group. And I think the minority owners are starting to feel that pressure. But Murray Edwards doesn't live in Calgary. He isn't listening to radio shows. He isn't listening to streams like us. He is listening to probably Sportsnet once a week from his castle in Sweden. Like,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating. And yet he thinks he can veto trades and rule with his iron fist. And I say this because I lived with him as my neighbor for 20 years of my life, folks. Like, I know Murray Edwards maybe better than any random person should. Like, it's just so incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, and I know we were talking about like building culture and everything, and there's some comments in the chat that are reminding everyone like the culture in Montreal looks very strong right now. It was not so early on in that rebuild. I think it was Trinka mentioned that Jeff Petrie had a press conference that probably got Ducharme fired, and Kay mentioned, I think, that there was a moment in that really bad year where obviously the team was missing Carey Price and everything. They'd picked up Sam Montembeault off of waivers. He was playing injured. He had something up with his hand that he had surgery on in the offseason because the Canadiens could not keep a goalie healthy that season. Like, they were down to no one. It was like him and like their fifth stringer. So he just played through injury. But there was a moment in that season where he was giving up tons of goals. They were getting scored on constantly. But he got hit behind the net, like really dirty. And Jeff Petrie was right there and like watched it and just like turned and skated by. And everyone's like, what the hell was that? So like Jeff Petrie that year, he didn't get traded until I think the following year, but he had a very rough time and seemed to run roughshod through multiple people. And it was not great. Like, it looked pretty tough. And then it was really St. Louis who came in and led by example. And, you know, like we talk about like players, coaches are like hard ass coaches, but I find St. Louis is the first coach that I've ever seen in the NHL who speaks like a parent. And I'm sure part of that is because he is one, his kids are still relatively young, and also he was coaching kids. And I remember when the Canadiens hired him and he was made fun of relentlessly in media for like the lack of experience. And this is a kid's coach. Like, why are the Canadians doing this? And I got it. Like, in terms of experience, it's wild. But when you listen to him talk, you understood that this was a guy who had big plans. And the way that he communicates with players and treats players is just so much more human than I've seen anywhere else in the NHL. That there's several points within this rebuild where I've thought to myself, like, have I lost my critical eye? Because I was very critical of the Bergevin regime from the very beginning. I was I was suspicious of their credibility as leaders, right? And I just haven't had that with this regime. And I'm like, am I being too soft on them? But they just keep proving what I think in my brain might be delusional correct. Like, they just follow through on what they're doing. And so, as bad as it is right now for Calgary, I guess my overall thing is, if you actually get them to be shocked enough to make the change, things can turn around way quicker than you would ever expect.
Andrew, though, I'm going to counter. Like, who in this... I'm going to read out our front office manager. Because I don't think you realize...
How bad?
People that are going to change their mind. Don Maloney, formerly in the Arizona Coyotes, was around when they had that whole drafting scandal.
Oh, right. That's right. Didn't that get him fired?
Yeah. And now he's with Calgary. So let's not put any faith that he's going to change his mind. Oh, who's your senior VP of hockey operations and your AGM? Some guy by the name of Dave Nonis. We remember what Dave Nonis did in Toronto, folks. Okay, let's go down the line.
If we don't, Darren Dreger does.
Yep, let's go down the line. Brad Pascal, who was with Hockey Canada for the 2004 roster that was selected that had Robin Regeer on the roster. I love Robin Regeer. Should he have been playing on a national Canadian team? Not in his life. Peter Hanlon, who was just announced to the front office. He comes from the media and communications side, and he's now an assistant general manager for the Calgary Flames. We saw how well that worked for the Buffalo Sabres for the last decade. And then there's Craig Conrad, who is your general manager, and your special advisor to the GM, Jerome McGinley. So, let's look at that list of executives again and see how quickly we think this Flames team is going to change their direction on anything. The answer is never.
Yeah. It's tough, right?
People outside this market don't realize how dire it is being a Flames fan, right?
And I think when you have a team like Canadian teams especially, they just don't change on their own. Like, there has to be some sort of catalyst that forces their hand. Like, even in Toronto, like, it was beyond obvious that after 2021, the Canadians needed to break up that core. Or not Canadians, sorry. The Maple Leafs needed to break up that core. At that point, when his value was still extraordinarily high, they probably should have traded Mitch Marner. They probably would have gotten a heck of a lot more than they would have a couple years later. I know that they didn't really trade him. They traded his rights, but like...
Which is apparently the rumor that the Flames are going to do with Rasmus Andersson now.
Why wouldn't they just do that earlier? Like, all these teams, they wait until it's too late. You know, the Vancouver Canucks did it. I know the Sedins wanted to stay there, but they've done it with other players too. Like, I understand wanting to keep guys who've been there for a long time, or that you don't want to like upset the apple cart too much. But when nothing you're doing is working, why would you keep doing the same thing? Why would you keep hiring from the same pool of people? Like, expand your mind a little bit. Go outside. Like, you don't even have to go outside of hockey. Just go outside of the established NHL like thing, you know? And I know that
caused the decade of darkness in Edmonton. Like, we have a direct point to look at 3 hours north of us here in Calgary. Because they did the same thing. They hired from the same pool. They always pulled Hockey Canada guys, or guys that Daryl Cates knew from the good old days. And then they happened to luck into Connor McDavid, and now they've been forced to make front office changes to keep him happy.
Yeah. It's nuts. It's nuts. Um,
I'm going
there
to
was a
steal from Steve Dangle and ask, what do these people do all day? Like, I don't love stealing from SDPN because they stole enough from this organization already. But regardless, like, I don't know how this front office group has jobs. Like, how does
that's the
Dean
thing.
Notice stay in the sport?
How is
He
Peter
ruined
Chiarelli
product.
still there? Like, Peter Chiarelli still has a job. Like, there's so many guys. Colin Campbell still works for the NHL. Colin Campbell,
He
a
might
man
be the
who's
next, he might be the next governor of the NHL.
oh, I think it won't be. I don't think it will. That would be. Oh my
There's
God.
a
There's no
chance.
way, right?
There's
No.
a
Bill Daly.
non-zero chance, Andrew.
Non-zero, yeah, but it'll probably be Bill Daly, right? Like 95%.
I've heard things that lead me to think that Daly is not the shoe-in that everyone thinks he is, but
Oh,
all rumor.
who knows? Who knows? But yeah, there was a comment in here that was saying like Bergevin left the Canadiens some good assets, and that's true, right? Like Suzuki was acquired by Bergevin, Caulfield, Gooley, like there were good players that came in at the end, especially of the Bergevin regime. The
But how
Flames
much
have
control
the
did
same
Bergevin
situation.
had in that? Like,
Right. Well, he
take
was
the-
pretty thumbs on the scale at the draft. Like he made override decisions, but most of his override decisions at the draft were pretty bad. Things like forcing Jared Tenorti, I believe was him, or Michael McCarron. That was one that Bergevin put his thumb on the scale. Poor choices, and poor choices for a long time in the draft with Bergevin at the helm. It was only the last couple of years where they made bank on some picks, but the Flames are in the same situation, right? Like you can have a bad manager who still finds some decent players. Like if the Flames were in a rebuild, I feel like the problem with the Flames now is like, even if you were to get the rubber band to snap and try to change things and do a rebuild, it's going to be tough to lose enough with Dustin Wolf to be one of the bottom teams in the NHL. Maybe not this year, because last I checked, it was like 28 of 32 teams were above 500, but most years it'll be tough to bottom out enough to be one of the worst teams with a goaltender that good.
And just a reminder, the Calgary Flames had more regulation wins than Vegas. It's as
That's what you get for signing Carter Hart.
but
Fuck,
also
don't lie.
Vegas is leading the division. So, or the conference rather.
God.
I know, Pacific Division, not Western Conference.
I've heard
And
they've lost
reminder-
like 4 in a row, haven't they?
They have, but they were still at the top, I think, as of this morning. But a reminder, no team, or this might not be true, it was true as of 2 days ago. There were no teams in the Pacific that had a positive goal difference.
That's amazing. The Canadiens just now finally have a positive goal differential. I think they had a +1 last game too, but yeah, they're finally there, because the first couple months of the season, the goalies could not stop a puck.
And hey, with the way that the Calgary Flames are running Dustin Wolf into the ground thinking he's prime Mika Kiprasov, we might not be able to have a save either. So,
Well, hey, I identify with that too, because the Canadiens red line Carey Price, and the one thing that I would look for, like that I would caution against for that coaching staff, and frankly, when I saw, I think it was in preseason, Ryan Huska talking about using ChatGPT for like analyzing their scoring chances, I was like, I would fire him immediately. And Julian McKenzie was like, whoa, why would you fire him immediately? Like, who knows? I was like, no, you're hired to do a job. There's only 32 of these in the goddamn world. And you're going to walk into the dressing room and tell me that you've got a computer doing part of it? No, bro.
and a
You're making
publicly
millions.
sourced, like a thing that's just drawing from public information. It could be drawing
is
from
not
my
accurate.
rants.
Yeah, and it's not accurate. There's no guarantee of anything. It's a language model. Like it's not a truth machine. But anyway, I digress. The redlining of the young goaltender, it can go beyond just like tiring them out in a short stretch in the season or whatever. Like Carey Price's career was straight up shortened by how much the Canadiens depended on him.
Thatcher Demko. Like there
Yep.
are numerous modern day examples. Like Thatcher Demko doesn't have knees anymore that work as a functioning human being.
Yep. And like Kiprasov, I know his career started late, but like the end of his career was pretty tough too, because he was redlined so much. Like you just shouldn't play 70 something games a season when you're a goaltender. Like
And
The
we're not
amount
talking about
of-
stand-up goaltenders anymore. Like, the butterfly is one of the hardest positions on the body, especially the reverse VH. I had a whole talk with David Marcoux about this before the Circle K Classic that we did here in Calgary. Like, goaltending is a damaging position on the body as is.
Yeah. Romelli says Suzuki was acquired despite Bergevin. This is true. He wanted Cody Glass and was told no by the Vegas Golden Knights. But yeah, it's tough because obviously the situation for Calgary is really brutal from a management perspective. I feel like they've got some talent in the organization, but it's either really young or really old. So, and that's never a situation that you really want to be in. You want to have like stages of players kind of, where you've got like your rookies breaking in, your established young players, and then your veterans, not like only veterans and young players. But it can be turned around. I don't think there's a lot of confidence right here that it's going to be anytime soon for the Flames, which really sucks. But let's quickly transition into our third period and chat special teams and how that was a factor tonight, because I have a fun stat. All right, as we know, the Canadiens got just 3 minutes of power play time tonight. The Flames got 6. Now, the interesting thing about that is that in those power play minutes, the Canadiens outchanced the Flames. All right, so the shot attempts were 10-10. The scoring chances were 7-5 Canadiens in all special teams tonight.
I'm not shocked. Like, the fact of the matter is, the Calgary Flames penalty kill generates more chances than our power play does. And this is a top unit that has, for some reason, well, let's count the 4 faces that we constantly see there. Jonathan Huberdeau. If this was Florida, he'd be an elite scorer, or at least an elite setup man. Nazem Kadri, who is an absolute menace, has one of the best one-timers in the league, which, you know, I was hearing a stat from Calgary Flames broadcaster that Montreal leads the leagues in one-timer goals and one-timer attempts. So, hey, you should take Nazem Kadri and give us all your assets forever and ever. Amen. But, like, our power play is awful. Like, Anand, like, take over from me here, because I feel like I've been talking for a half hour and not letting you talk, but, like, you've had some pretty good points on that.
Yeah, I think on most nights the power play is dreadful to watch. I think that's the one word you can describe the Flames power play. Like, I know it shows up in some important times. Like, I know a couple weeks ago, Kadri scored an important power play goal for a game winner. If that's the case, it happens. But like today, 0 for 3, I know this game could have been maybe tied if they scored maybe 1 or 2 power play goals. It didn't happen. Like, the most important moments when we need it, you don't see the Flames do anything. And when you don't need it, or when you think, okay, the game is done, then you see them do something, and which I think is totally bizarre. Like, I think, you know, in football or NFL, you have the opportunity to decline a power play or like penalty. If you can decline something like that, I think it goes in the way of the Flames, because the opponent team has more short-handed chances. We saw the Montreal Canadiens have more short-handed chances than the Flames had time to set up their power play. So on most nights, it's kind of dreadful and disappointing to see. I don't know if there is a fix with the talent we have. We just talked about it. We need I don't know when Zane Perek will come back in. Maybe in a week or so, or maybe in a few weeks time after him going through that AHL conditioning stint. I think maybe that's one way to look at it. But with this current power play unit, I don't think we are getting anything out of it anytime soon.
But with our coaching, do we even want Zane Perek back? Like, he was allowed to play Zane Perek hockey at the World. If he comes back into this Calgary Flames roster and bumps Hunter Brustevich out, for lack of a better person to throw under the bus there, he's going to play 11 minutes a night. He is going to be extremely sheltered, and he's not going to develop. He should not be with the Calgary Flames. He should be in Saginaw, absolutely balling out in the OHL, and just being him for the rest of the year, regardless if it doesn't allow him to develop. Because what is a 19-year-old going to do playing third-line defensive minutes? And hey, maybe you recognize that we aren't actually going to keep Rasmus Andersson for that much longer, so maybe he'll get to play second pairing minutes. But until that point, he is rotting with the Calgary Flames and rotting under Ryan Huskisson.
Yeah. And there was a huge contrast tonight. Obviously, the Canadiens didn't have much. Maybe later. Sure, you can leave it down here. Sorry, my wife's just offering me snacks. Post-show snack. It really pays to live with my wife, I'll tell you. It's the best. But, yeah, I feel like the Canadiens, their power play, like the biggest issues with the Canadiens' power play this season, by contrast to the Flames, has been when they get too pretty and they overpass. And it's like, that's a good problem to have comparatively, right? They have a lot of creativity. Sometimes they get a little stagnant, but that's more like the last couple of years. They've done a lot of work on that power play. And what's interesting is I think they have like a top 5-ish power play so far this year. Maybe just a little bit out of it because they've been on a dry run.
8th going into tonight.
8th going in. So it's taken a hit because they've been kind of rough since like beginning of December. It's been a long time since they've scored a 5-on-4 goal. But that was a situation where nobody really trusted Marty St. Louis to figure it out because he's been a power play advisor before, and everywhere he's gone, it's gone terrible. But I guess repetition creates good results when you're Marty St. Louis, because I can't say that he's necessarily changed his approach too much. The players have changed around a little bit in terms of positioning, but they're just better at executing the vision now. But the vision has always been focused on, like, Marty St. Louis' big philosophy is make the best play. And he doesn't care if you make a mistake as long as you're making the best play. And I feel like that simple bit of language unlocked a huge amount of potential in almost every player on the roster. And it's been crazy to watch, like, the downstream effect of that over years.
And that's the exact opposite of what we're hearing with these Calgary Flames. Like, as we said, Stromgren makes his debut for the Flames tonight, makes one mistake in the second period, and then played 7 seconds in the second after. You are bringing up one of your youngest players in the system outside of Matt Vakrid and Zane Parekh, and he makes one mistake in his first NHL game and is stapled to the bench for it. Like, that does not make any sense. Especially if you are a team that's in a retool, rebuild, whatever, rebiggle, as we've termed it here in Calgary. Like, it just makes no sense. And, like, as much as I feel for the guy, he just got a 2-year extension. If this road trip, this 5-game road trip goes 0-5, I think Ryan Huska needs to not take the team bus to the airport after it. Might take a Uber separately from the team, if you understand what I'm saying.
The Gerard Gallant treatment. Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Hey,
that's tough.
So, however, I will go into a little bit of rumors here that I've heard, is that the Calgary Flames have their target in the offseason, in the head coaching.
Is it Daryl Sutter again?
As much as Murray Edwards wishes it was, I don't believe it is. I will go as far as saying it is in an organization that is close to the border in the United States and is a former Calgary Flames player. I will not say the name, but I think I've put out enough cookie crumbs there to give some people who want to do the research figure out who I've heard is in the rumor.
If I was like more league-wide informed, like I usually am, if the world wasn't falling apart and I wasn't doom scrolling every day instead of spending my day in NHL spreadsheets, I'd probably have figured it out by now. But I'm just going to let it sit.
It's another player like Martin St. Louis, whose big coaching breakthrough came coaching his son at the Brick Tournament.
Ooh, interesting. A former Flame.
I don't know that much history about the Calgary Flames, so I'll have to do some research.
I think
hear you,
there'll
man.
be some people who can figure it out. Because
Ramelli asks DeBoer?
Please no. But no. However, the Flames will need approval from the team he is currently coaching to speak with this person.
Well, one thing I'll say about DeBoer is he'll probably grind away into the playoffs one year. He gets
So did Daryl
results.
Sutter.
Yes, it's true. But if that's all you're looking for, right? I mean, that's why they brought Sutter back, is they're like, you can make them into a shot blocking, boring team that grinds out the odd win. And yeah, but I think that's what, like, in contrast to Montreal, again, is I think it was hard to get people to bite on the idea that they would not only be building a good team, but like building for excitement. Like when Kent Hughes said that at his introductory press conference, people were like, well, what does that mean? Like, are we actually going to try to build like a fancy team? And now to see just a couple years later how far down the line that's gone and how exciting they are to watch, considering they were incredibly boring to watch. Even the team that made the Stanley Cup final was not an exciting team per se. They did exciting things. It's wild to see them execute their vision. And when you have no vision, you don't get good results. You've got to think ahead. You've got to have an ideology, an idea. And we're talking about hockey, but we could just as easily be talking about politics. You know, so much of the world today is just, there's nobody who wants to dream bigger, right? It's always like, the perspective is always, how do we keep what we have? Like, just, this is mine and I don't want to share any of it. And we just got to, what we have, we got to keep that, risk nothing. There's no dreaming bigger. And I think that's what's been so inspiring about watching this Canadiens team, is that they are dreaming bigger. They're trying to do something different and cool and interesting. And it's actually mostly working out so far. And maybe I'll eat my words in 5 years, but it feels like a team that will have a very long competitive window, which is exactly what you want.
Compared to a Flames team who has a new building opening in a year and a half and will have 0 players on the ice that are worth watching to go see it, isn't it?
Wolf will be there, maybe.
Sure. If you want to go watch him allow 4 goals because he's the only person playing on the ice.
It's true. It's true. All right, let's switch to the presser here, see if we've got any questions. There was one question here from Outrage asking if the Flames would accept a deal for Nazem Kadri for some smoked meat from Schwartz's Deli. What do you think, guys?
As much as my dad would accept that deal, because every time my brother went to McGill, so I spent a lot of time in Montreal when I was younger going and visiting him. As much as my dad would accept that deal, unless there's a secret first-round pick hidden in layers of delicious, delicious smoked meat, that's going to be a no from me, dog.
Yeah. I will say, I feel like the Canadiens kind of owe the Flames a little bit. Because
a first-round pick,
the Paul Byron waiver pickup alone, phenomenal value. Like, just so much pure enjoyment from watching Paul Byron as a Montreal Canadien, who, by the way, is still working for the Canadiens. After he retired, he's now he's some sort of skills coach, I think, with the Canadiens. The Brett Kulak move, also great for the Canadiens, both as a player and then when they traded him to Edmonton. Because that Edmonton pick that they got for Brett Kulak became Lane Hudson, guys. Lane Hudson. It's wild.
And then
you got the Monahan deal.
I was gonna go get my Monahan poster that's just sitting over on my right. At least you guys loved him as much as we did.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? He's so lovable.
Dude, so lovable and just can't stay healthy to save his life. But you're talking about how Matt Byron is still on as a development coach. You want to hear who the Flames 3 development coaches are that are former Calgary Flames?
Very much so.
Michael Stone, so he can teach players how to shoot the puck a million miles an hour. Matt
and be
Stajan,
totally inept defensively.
Yeah. Matt Stajan, hey, maybe we can win a face-off now.
Yeah.
And Brent Seabrook. Are those the 3 most skilled guys you can think of to bring in to coach as former players?
Well,
and Martin Gelinas. Martin Gelinas we can give the pass to.
Yeah, I like Martin Gelinas. And also he's the eliminator, so like build him a statue in Calgary. But Brent Seabrook, I don't know. I just personally, and I know this isn't really a concern for the Flames because NHL teams in general don't care, but I personally would not bring in a member of the Blackhawks leadership core that was there during the Kyle Beach incident, considering they like made fun of him on the ice.
They're all innocent,
in practice.
you know.
Yeah. So I
single one
wouldn't do that on a rebuilding team where you're going to have a lot of young players. I just think it sends the wrong message exactly. Oh, I think you're frozen. Oh, no, you weren't frozen, Conrad. I just stunned you.
No, I'm reading the comment. Matt Stajan is in fact cool. And
Yes,
I
he
will
is.
always have love for the Stajan family. I still remember his shootout goal after losing his firstborn child the day after up in Edmonton. That will always be a core memory for me.
Yeah. Oh, and King in the North mentioned that McKenna might be in Calgary when the new building's there. So that's something to look forward
You
to.
know what? We're not going to out-tank the Canucks because the Canucks are actually trading away everything that has skill.
Oh, true. God.
And
It's
the
so
Winnipeg
bleak.
Jets too. I don't know what has happened to them this year either.
Yeah.
From
What happened there?
President's Trophy. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Who did they lose? What was his name in the offseason?
The Jets?
Yeah. Second line
Nikolai
scoring
Ehlers.
depth.
Well, they brought in Taves, which, again, Blackhawks
Chicago
leadership
Blackhawks
crew.
leadership group.
So maybe that's the that's the commonality between all the worst teams in the league.
So, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt here because we talked about William Stromgren loss today and
Yep.
talking about young players. In his NHL debut tonight, this is according to Ryan Pike. Shout out to the guys over at Flames Nation. In his NHL debut with the Flames, played 8 minutes and 4 seconds. Sure.
Drew a penalty.
Drew 2 minors, but
Oh,
was
he drew the other one too.
Yeah.
-1.
Yeah, so that's all that Ryan Huska sees is the incredibly flawed stat that is plus minus and stable to the bench.
You know what I was thinking while I was watching the Flames getting dominated tonight was it's the rookie's fault. It's Stromgren's fault. Actually, honestly though, every time he was mentioned, all I could think was it sounds like they're really struggling to say strongman. It sounds like a drunk person trying to say strongman. Struggling. Like, especially when you got like Kelly Rudy, who sometimes bumbles his words on there. It took me a couple minutes to figure out who that was.
And as much as I love Kelly, because one of my high school friends is married to his daughter, yeah, I can use less Kelly Rudy in my play-by-play life or color commentary life. Yeah, like as I said, Flames aren't young, but we did have 3 rookies.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. But maybe we'll close it out there because it's quite late, and especially for me out here on the East Coast. Not for you gentlemen in Alberta. I believe you're still in Alberta, right, Conrad?
Yeah, it's the best part of living out west is that even those late games are early games.
Yeah, it is nice. I mean, hockey, as soon as you get back at like 5 o'clock, that's perfect. But
somebody's picked up the cookie crumbs in chat. So,
ooh, interesting. All right, I'm excited to see who it might be. But I really appreciate you guys coming on here with me tonight for Game Over Montreal, crossed over with Game Over Calgary. I appreciate everybody in the chat having a good time with us. And if you like the Flames or not, if you've got a night where the Flames are playing and you're up late, check out Game Over Calgary because these two are grinding it out this year, watching this team that really doesn't deserve their time, but they're giving it anyway. And I've been there. I did it for Game Over Montreal the first year when it was just hopeless and brutal. Things can get better, but give these guys your respect and your love because it's tough out there watching a bad team. I know it's been tough for Zach in Toronto this year too.
Well, hey, they at least have star talent in Toronto.
True enough. All right, Anand, Unnithan, Conrad, Krausert, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to close out for us here tonight, and we'll see you on the next one. Oop, that's the wrong button. There we go.